Hi, I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president, and I'm here on the road, as you can see, heading back to my home in Virginia from the New Jersey Libertarian Party State Convention. It's about 10 o'clock at night on Sunday night. I don't arrive back till about 1 a.m. or so, and so I thought, well, I got some time to while away here, and I thought I'd give you one of my famous post-debate commentaries. So I actually attended 3 conventions, so I'm going to give you a commentary on all 3 events. And one was the Virginia convention in Charlottesville, which is my home state. It's about two and a half hours away from where I live. And then the second one, that was Saturday morning. And then Saturday evening was a debate in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania with the Pennsylvania Libertarian Party. And then Sunday evening, there's a Jersey Libertarian Party debate and convention that was held in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So let me just preface this by saying that, it's hard to achieve perfection in human affairs because we're all human. But I'll tell you, these 3 conventions were about as close to perfection as you'd ever find. I mean, it was just an absolute awesome experience at all 3 conventions. I guess I can't tell you what a positive experience it is. It started out in Virginia and in Saturday morning. And what was fascinating about their convention is that they didn't do a debate. They let every candidate talk for 15 minutes to explain his vision for what he would do as a presidential candidate, and what his vision for America is. And it was absolutely fantastic. And what was so fascinating is that they really wanted to hear from each candidate. I mean, they gave each candidate 15 minutes. I don't know the total number of candidates, but it was 7 or 8. I mean, let's assume it was 8. I mean, you're talking about 2 hours right there to listen to 8 candidates. And to me, that's just remarkable, because it was clear that they wanted to hear from us. And everybody was so grateful that we were there. I didn't stay for lunch, but they didn't charge me for lunch. In fact, let me just say this about all 3 conventions. None of them charged us for being in the debates or to make our speeches. None of them. And you may say, well, what's odd about that, Jacob? And I said, well, because the current trend now in the Libertarian Party at the state level is to use presidential candidates as a way to raise funds for the state party. Now, it's only started with a few of them, but the attitude there is that they are doing us a favor, and they're saying, if you want to participate in our debates, you have to give us money here to do the privilege of participating in these debates. And I totally oppose this. The way these 3 conventions worked is they wanted to hear from us. I mean, it was fascinating, which is the way it should be. This is a nominating process. Each convention should be there saying, we need to hear from everybody to determine who is the best candidate to represent this party as its presidential candidate. And when you do, fundraising barriers to debate entry or to giving a talk or whatever, it impedes that process, that exploratory process. So I'm totally opposed to this notion of using the presidential campaign as a state Libertarian Party fundraiser. These 3 conventions, it was totally different. They wanted to hear from every single candidate that was there. And I didn't stay for lunch in Virginia, but they didn't charge me. If I'd stayed, it was free. It was just incredible. All right, so then we go to Pennsylvania. It was in a first-class hotel in beautiful Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Nice, quaint little town. Well, it's the capital, but really nice little town, but beautiful hotel. First-class meal where they charge people $50 for a meal that I think could easily go for $80, $90. But what was clear is that they were charging their cost on this to attendees. Now, why would they do that? Because I've run conferences before. Because you increase your attendance if you don't try to make a profit on your meals off your attendees. If you just charge them cost, your attendance expands to a large extent. And there was a large crowd at the Pennsylvania convention. It was just great. But get this, okay, they not only charge us not to be in the debate, I mean, they didn't charge us to be in the debate. They didn't charge the presidential candidates for their meals. They treated us. I mean, that's how grateful they were. People were coming up to us at all three conventions saying, thank you, Jacob. Thank you for taking the time to come here. It was just, they made us feel like royalty. And, we're all in this, all the candidates, and we've gotten to know each other really well. And we go to battle when we go into these conventions, but off the stage, we've gotten to be pretty good friends. And you get tired doing these things. Everybody has got tired, like in New Jersey, going to one to another. And it's just nice when people come up and say, thank you for coming over and doing this. And so they didn't charge us even for exhibit tables. I mean, I can understand a party charging for an exhibit table. Okay, they're trying to cover some of their costs. And, as long as it's a reasonable price, I don't have any problems with that. Pennsylvania gives us our exhibit tables for free. It was just a joyful experience. And so we go to New Jersey, and again, they don't charge us for the meals. They don't charge us to be in the debates, and they are grateful, just as grateful as the other two. People were coming up to me, thank you, Jacob. Thanks for taking the trip to come on over here and be part of our debate. Now, here's the kicker. A member of the Libertarian Party there in New Jersey comes up and gives me a card in an envelope. Now, about 4 or 5 months ago, I went and participated in a New Jersey event called Winterfest, where we had a debate there with three of the presidential candidates. This lady gives me a card inside an envelope. I pull it out, and it's a thank you card. And it's signed by 4 or 5 members of the party thanking me for coming to this Winterfest party and participating in their debate. Can you imagine that? I mean, how thoughtful is that? It's incredible. I mean, gosh, I feel like royalty at these 3 conventions. I mean, this is the way that I think is the ideal way to run a convention, and to how to handle candidates that are going in there and trying to share their views with all the attendees. So there's my report on the debates and the conventions. But now, I want to give you some positive news here now. Okay, now, I have friends that are libertarians that are not part of the party. They know what I'm doing here, and they know I'm swimming upstream in this party. Because what they tell me is, Jacob, you're never going to shift the direction of this party. And they're talking about Social Security and Medicare, and to a certain extent, immigration controls. But school vouchers, too, and taking over the government schools. In other words, the reform-oriented message that has come to define this party. And they tell me, Jacob, it's too deeply ingrained in the party of supporting Social Security and Medicare. You can't win this nomination without supporting these 2 socialist programs. And they tell me that. Of course, I'm headstrong and say, nothing's inevitable. Okay, people can shift. That's the power of argumentation and debate. So get this, tonight at the Pennsylvania Libertarian Party Convention, I give my little opening spiel about how I am running a different kind of campaign, a campaign of pure principle, which means the abolition of all socialist programs, libertarian socialism. In other words, the devotion to keeping Medicare and Social Security intact for the next 25 years minimum. Because from the South Carolina debate, that has been the position of all of my opponents, at least with respect to Social Security. I'm sure it's the same with Medicare, that we have to continue this socialist program. And that's been for 20 years, and I can understand them taking that position. Their position is just like my friends say, that if you want this party's nomination, you have to support Social Security and Medicare. There's just no way around it, because it's so deeply ingrained. And they think that, we're going to lose votes if we don't support these things. And of course, I point out that the latest public opinion poll shows us now at 0%. So, 0%, that's where we're at 0%. I mean, that's even less than the 1.1% that we got, 3 years ago. And my point is that if voter sentiment has not improved for the Libertarian presidential candidate that has this reform message, keep Social Security, reform it, keep Medicare, school vouchers, immigration controls, it's not going to get any better over the next 7 or 8 months. And that's why I keep saying we need to shift directions if we're going to lead America to freedom, especially with a big breakout in votes, 10 to 15%, which I contend is entirely possible, but only with a campaign of pure principle. Okay, so that's where I am. At the South Carolina debate, man, they all came after me. All 7 of them or whatever was in the debate, 6, I don't know. But they all came after me and attacked me that I lack compassion for abolishing Social Security, as if compassion comes from the initiation of force through the IRS, coercive taxation. I mean, that's not compassion. And then they said that they were entitled to their money back, which is nonsense because it's just a welfare program. Nobody puts their money into a fund. People are taxed, FICA taxes. Your taxes are spent, and it's a simple stealing program. It's based on stealing money from the young and the productive, either directly through the income tax or through the Federal Reserve, through the printing of money. So if you continue this program for 25 years, you're going to be stealing. And that's the message we send out to the American people, that we stand as a party of principle that takes a pledge not to support the initiation of force. We run presidential campaigns that do exactly that. And my argument is that when you abandon your principles like this, voters are not dumb. They understand, at least on an instinctive level, that this is not a good thing. And so, what's the good news in all this? Okay, tonight at the debate, I give my pitch about how we need to abolish these socialist programs immediately. We need to restore faith in freedom and voluntary charity. America lived without these socialist programs for 100 years. And not only were there not people dying in the streets, but there was the greatest outburst of voluntary charity that mankind has ever seen. That we need to lead America in the restoration of this faith. Well, at the South Carolina debate, they were all attacking me, okay? I mean, confirming what my friend said. He says, you're not gonna change the direction of this party. And I'm like headstrong, okay? I don't give up. Tonight, one of my presidential opponents says, I want to take Mr. Hornberger to task. Now, this is a good task he's taking me to, because he says, I want to make it clear that I favor the elimination of Social Security. Okay, now, I wasn't going to let him off the hook there. I said, when? And he ignored me. And I said, when? And he goes, because, it's one thing to want to end Social Security 25 years from now. I mean, that's what they said at South Carolina. We want to end it too 25 years from now. That's their 25-year plan for freedom. And as I pointed out repeatedly since then, a 25-year plan for freedom doesn't interest me at my age. I want freedom now in my lifetime, which necessarily means the dismantling of infringements on freedom. If all you do is reform infringements on freedom, you haven't achieved freedom. Any more than the reform of slavery would have meant freedom for slaves. You got to dismantle it. So I pressed him. I said, when? And all of a sudden it comes out. Immediately. Wow. Okay. Why is this significant? Because this is a major shift. Okay, it's only one out of the 7 or 8, but one down, 7 or 8 to go. There's now 2 of us on the same page of the immediate abolition of Social Security. Now, I don't know where he stands on Medicare and Medicaid, but my hunch is his position will be the exact same as mine. Abolish these government programs, these socialist programs, immediately. So here is a major shift in my direction. I am very excited about this. Okay, only one. But my hunch is there's at least 1 and maybe 2 other candidates that are teetering, that are getting very close to saying, I now favor the immediate abolition of these socialist programs. Now, why is this so significant? Because this candidate's supporters, and let me name him. It's Josh Smith. And Josh, I tip my hat to you. I commend you, because this is not an easy decision to make, especially after, taking the position of supporting Social Security ever since South Carolina. I commend you on this because watch what happens now. This is how shifts come, not only in a party, but in a nation. Because if we can shift this party to principle, to our genuine founding principles, then we can shift this nation to the good, sound founding principles of this nation. Now, we know there were some bad founding principles like slavery, but there were some good ones, which included no Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or any welfare or socialism for more than 100 years. Josh's supporters are now placed in a fascinating position. What do they do now? The candidate that they supported, who favored the continuation of Social Security previously, is now come out publicly in favor of the immediate abolition, my position. What do they do? Okay. Do they abandon him? Do they say, well, Josh, this is not our position. We got to keep these socialist programs going. We got to shift now to a new opponent here that still supports these socialist programs. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Josh's supporters are going to stick with him, but they're going to think. And they're going to think, if Josh is making this decision, there's got to be a reason why he's doing this. And they're going to start thinking it through. And they're going to start reevaluating this position. And this is how paradigm shifts take place in companies, in organizations, in life, in societies. Okay? It begins with a small number, but it starts expanding. Now, I don't know what Josh's reasoning is, because these debates, they're not like the Virginia thing where they give you 15 minutes. The debate moderator limits you to 1 minute or 90 seconds. And I really do not like the debate formats at all, because you can't set forth your vision in 1 minute or 90 seconds. And some of the time, I mean, they're entertaining, okay? They're very entertaining. But I just think that, entertaining is not what we're doing here with respect to trying to pick the best candidate. All right? So Josh clearly did not have the time to go into why he has now taken this position. There's at least a couple of possibilities. One is that he has thought it through and he's figured it out. That this is a policy that violates our core principle. It violates the pledge that we all take in this party. That's important. The non-aggression principle. Social Security is based on the initiation of force. So is Medicare and Medicaid. Every other socialist program. And so one possibility, he's figured out this is bad news. This party should not be running presidential candidates that are calling for a violation of our core principle. It is my contention that voters instinctively know when a party is doing something like this. And that when you're out there decrying socialism but supporting socialism, or decrying evil, there's one candidate that says Social Security is evil, and he's right. But then he says, but we have to continue it. And so who's going to vote for a message that says we oppose evil, but we call for its continuation in our party? And I think Josh may very well have figured this out. And also that you can rely on voluntary charity, that you don't have to worry about people dying in the streets, as all of my opponents said at the South Carolina debate and have said ever since. And that there's no refund of money here. People have not put in their money into a fund or anything. It's a straight stealing program. It's no different from any other socialist program. It's very possible that Josh has figured this out, because I've been making these arguments time after time after night in every single debate. All right? So it's possible he's figured out. Damn, Jacob is right. Okay? Now, one, but a significant one. And like I say, I think one or two are teetering now. And that's how you get this shift toward principle. The other possibility is that Josh is saying, well, I'm not really fully on board, but he senses a shift in the party toward principle. Okay? And if you sense a shift in the party on principle and you want to win the nomination, then you shift your position too. Okay? At least if you're not deeply wedded to that position. And so that's a possibility too. But either way, it's a very exciting thing for me, because if Josh has reevaluated his position and realized that I'm right on this thing, or if he's realized that the party is shifting because the members of the party are figuring out that I'm right, it doesn't matter. Each way is positive. Okay, so this is very exciting for me. And I can't wait to tell my friend about it that said, you can't ever change the direction of this party. Now, that's not all, though. Let me give you some more positive news in this thing. In the Pennsylvania debate last night, there were, I think, 2. I don't think it could have been 3, I'm not sure. But I'm almost certain it was at least 2 that called for a separation of healthcare in the state. I mean, I've been arguing the separation of healthcare and state for 30 years in my job at the Future of Freedom Foundation. You know, I published a book there called The Dangers of Socialized Medicine. And my argument is that, look, you can complain about Fauci's and the lockdowns and the mandates and all, but all you're doing if you leave power vested in government is they're just going to appoint new people to replace them. And that the only real solution to this COVID crisis and the whole healthcare crisis, including Medicare and Medicaid, is you separate healthcare in the state at both the federal and state level. Now, what does that mean? That means, just like religion, the state cannot get involved in religion at the state level or the federal level, thanks to the 14th Amendment. With healthcare, the states have the power to regulate healthcare. This is part of the traditional police powers of the state. This is the 10th Amendment. And all of my opponents favor this 10th Amendment thing, you know, the state sovereignty. That's what they say, state sovereignty and nullification, which means the states have the power to regulate health care. State sovereignty, that's what it means. And so what I'm saying is remove that power entirely. Just separate health care in the state with a constitutional amendment, just like we separated church and state. It's the only freedom police position, because then now you don't have to worry about any more Fauci's or mandates or lockdowns, because they lack the power to regulate healthcare or to provide healthcare like Medicare and Medicaid. Yesterday, 2, I think, maybe 3, not sure, came out and publicly declared in favor of the separation of healthcare in the state. Now, I could be mistaken, and I stand to be corrected if somebody points it out, but I do not believe that this has happened at any previous debate. That this is the first debate where you've had 2 people, in addition to me, calling for the separation of healthcare in the state. It's very exciting. Okay? That's not all the good news. For a long time, I've been calling for the dismantling of the national security state. I keep saying it's not enough to end the forever wars, because there's always another forever war following the other forever war. They've always got one, you know, ready to go, or 2, or 3, and that the real root of the problem is the national security state, the Pentagon, the CIA, and the NSA. And so at every debate, whenever I hear my opponents say, I'm anti-war, I'm anti-war, I'm anti-war, okay, great. But if you don't get rid of the national security state, it doesn't matter how anti-war you are, because you're not pulling the weed out by its root. And this is a big weed. And when I announced my candidacy, I said I want to be free. That's number 1, why I'm running. But number 2, it's to bring an end to the federal killing machine, which Martin Luther King correctly called the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. The invasions, occupations, assassinations, coups, drug war, immigration controls, death and suffering, sanctions, embargoes. Death and suffering is all around us because of this killing machine. This is the root cause of the forever wars. If you don't get rid of this, you can be as anti-war as you want to be, but you're not going to get rid of the wars, because they always got one in the hamper. Notice, they just got out of Afghanistan, and within a very short period of time, they're into Ukraine. Okay? Nobody even had time to reflect on Afghanistan, because they've always got some in the hopper. At the Pennsylvania convention, I heard 1, possibly 2, I'm not sure, of my opponents calling for the dismantling of the national security state. Okay. This is very, very exciting for me. I mean, it shows me that there's something happening here. There's a shift taking place. Okay, not everybody. There's still people that favor the national security state. They're on immigration, they're still, none of them have come around yet. Okay, they still favor the immigration control system. But hey, you know, just keep hammering away for open borders. And will they come around? Will 1 come around, 2 come around? I think so. And you know, I don't have anything to base it on, but you know, it's a spectrum. There's those that want the ferocious enforcement. They talk like Trump and DeSantis. They want to seal the border and complete the Berlin Wall, which of course is done with stealing through eminent domain of people's property. At the other end are the Biden type people that say, well, look, we want to have inspection stations and the police state to enforce them all across the country, but we want the immigration officials to let in more immigrants. So the operative word is let. Okay, they're not yet. None of them are there in the total open borders position. But give me some time here. Give me some time. We've got some really positive developments. We should look at the glass as half full, not half empty. And so that's my report. All positive this weekend. All positive. That's my post-convention report. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thanks for your great support. And I look forward to talking to you in my next post-convention report.